Hi, and welcome to OutRight TV, a video and podcast series bringing you stories of LGBTIQ people and allies across the globe as we face the COVID pandemic together. I'm Luisa Veado, United Nations Program Officer of OutRight, and in today's episode, I'm talking to Tushar Malik. Tushar, thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me, Louisa. It's great to connect also professionally because we've known each other as friends for a while. And this is cool.
So let's start with that. I know you for a while, and I can say a bunch of stuff about you, that you're a social butterfly, that you're great company, that you know all the right places to go everywhere. But why don't you describe yourself to our audience?
Well, I don't know much about the right places to go everywhere when I'm stuck in my studio apartment here because I can go from my door to my window and my window to my door. But anyhow, hi everyone. My name is Tushar Malik. I am an international LGBTQ rights advocate. And I hail from India, which is where my advocacy started with young queer and questioning people. And then I progressed onwards to a lot of movement building in India, a lot of like online movement building in Southeast Asia with other young queer people. Moved to the United States in 2013. Worked there for a while with a few LGBT organizations and international organizations, including volunteering for OutRight for quite a few years. Yeah, I was the chair for the engagement committee in New York, and that was super fun while I was studying there. And then recently, as of September last year, moved to Amsterdam to kind of start the next chapter in my life. And I continue to do LGBTQ rights work as like, volunteering with a few nonprofits here and there. But I'm also currently working with an HIV/AIDS nonprofit called AIDS Funds here in Amsterdam. And I'm part of a program called Pitch, which is the Partnership to Inspire, Transform, and Change the HIV Response. And we specifically focus on building the capacity and supporting the advocacy of key populations in the HIV response, which includes sex workers, people who inject drugs, adults and girls and young women, and of course, LGBTQ people in 9 countries and 2 regions in the world. And we're specifically focusing on building the capacity for advocacy because we do have a lot of funding globally for programs and for reporting, but we don't really focus that much on advocacy. And that's the gap that we aim to fill. And I'm super happy that a lot of my passions for queer rights work and international organizing and just nonprofits in general have just come together. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I've been, involved in like LGBTQ rights work for going to be about 11 years now. Yeah.
Amazing. And as everyone could notice from this really short blurb, that you lived in a lot of places. And currently you're in Holland. And can you tell us how is it there, how the COVID situation is going? And if you want to talk about everywhere else you lived, or maybe just India, so we don't stay here for 3 hours while we talk about everywhere you lived.
Well, I haven't lived in that many places. I visited a lot of places because I do love to travel quite a bit. So that's one of the things that I really miss right now. I was actually supposed to be back home in India right now with my family, going on a family trip to Bhutan, but all of that is now not happening anymore, especially because like I had to kind of make a decision between staying in the Netherlands versus going back to India. And I do not think that India has been handling the COVID crisis too well, especially when it comes to handling, populations that are, like, for instance, migrant workers, people who are already marginalized, because they don't really have all the necessary social safety nets and the structures to be able to just sit at home and ride out this wave of COVID. My family is safe and, they are able to like stay at home, be on lockdown, they have access to all the food and the resources that are needed, but not everyone's as lucky And I think that the government policies that they are rolling out are more targeted towards the middle classes who can afford to be on lockdown, as opposed to people who are in difficult situations. And, something that is like, I'm really, really concerned about, both for my work and for my passions, is what is happening with people who are queer, who are now stuck at home with homophobic people, or people who are sex workers who are not able to actually work, and how do we end up supporting them? So that's a bit of a downer that we're not only seeing in India but across the world. Here in the Netherlands, I think I'm luckier to be living in a country where healthcare is a human right, and they have really good social healthcare compared to the United States, which is where I lived right before this. And when I'm seeing how what's the word? Am I allowed to say the F word online?
We get the
No,
idea.
but it is really okay. I'll say it is really messed up. Like when I see the reports of how terribly things are going in the United States, and see a lot of messages from my friends, because I lived there for so long. I have so many friends in New York and DC, across the United States. It's just really saddening to see that people who are the most vulnerable are not able to access these. And I would say that I'm lucky that way, that I'm here in the Netherlands. We don't have lockdowns, we just have social distancing. And in general, I think the populace here is like much more, we'll self-isolate, we will maintain distance. So it's been okay. The weather's been a little better, so it's nice to go out for a little bike ride or a walk in park once in a while. But yeah, besides that, I think it's okay. It's it's been a bit of an adjustment to, like, start working from home. But I guess at this point, it's more about how do you ensure that you're practicing self-care, and how do you ensure that you're able to make the best of whatever you have.
Definitely. And on that note, like, you're one of the biggest social butterflies I know. So you make friends with everyone. Like, you can go to the grocery store and come back with a friend. And how is this social isolation treating you? Has it been hard? Has it been difficult?
It has been hard. It has absolutely been hard. I mean, I guess, yeah, if you're an extrovert like me, it's just automatically you're like, you need that human connection. You need to have that kind of an interaction. And to be honest, like Zoom and Skype and these kind of like group hangouts do not really work for me. It's so inorganic. Like there's something to say about, like, when you're just sitting in a group and you're like, oh, I'm gonna talk to this person, the other person butts in, and that's like, that's just how it works. But on Zoom, it's like, let's go around in a circle and talk about our feelings. And I'm like, no, I'm not in a therapy session here. So I, it
I
just,
feel you.
or the other way, it reminds me of like work calls where it's like, okay, this is the agenda and this is what we're going to talk about. So I will say that I actually, this is the fun part. So I was like, I thought I was alone in that. And I did a poll on Instagram, and 74% of the people who responded to that said that they felt the same way about these social Zoom calls. So I can imagine there's so many other people going through this, like, if you're a social person. And one of the ways that I'm working around with that is that I've still maintained contact, like physical, like non-social distancing contact with two friends. And we keep ourselves, each other accountable. We ensure that, you know, we're not meeting other people. We're just like, okay, between the few people who are in this like closer group, we're still maintaining contact, because loneliness kills, to be honest. Like it's not fun. Plus yeah, rent's expensive and places are tiny, which I can give on
I
New
feel
York as
you.
well.
I feel you. Yeah, it's been really hard being alone, and we're so we take it so much for granted that it's kind of hard when it's taken away from us. And this and still, like, staying in, don't leave unless you need to vibe. I don't know if our audience knows, I bet a lot of people do, that you have a cooking show on Facebook that I do follow. And it was missed when you stopped doing it. And I'm really happy that it's back. Do you want to tell our audience about it and other things that you've been doing? They're like fun things to do while in quarantine.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess when the social justice thing first started, I thought of it as like, oh, this is great. I can just sit at home and watch Netflix. But it tends to get boring after some time. And so what have I been doing? I bought tons of flowering plants. In fact, wait, here, let me just, those are my babies.
Oh, I think
I
I'm
don't know if you can
becoming
see
a plant mom.
No, I only got flowering plants because I was like, I need some like brightness, and plus it's springtime, so everything is blossoming. Like I had some beautiful tulips and daffodils, which now the season's gone. But no, so I got plants, went a bit trigger happy on that, and then I was thinking, what else am I really passionate about that I can potentially share with other people? And so I came up with the idea of a cook along in the times of Corona, edition of like, kind of Facebook live cooking. Because a lot of friends have always asked me, they're like, oh, I really want to learn how to cook Indian food. And they think that it's like, oh, so complicated and so difficult. So what I've tried to do with my online Facebook live show is, and this is only open to friends as of now, but depending on if there's a larger request or need, I could open it to more public. But it's literally me in my pajamas and just in my tiny kitchen, working with ingredients that are easy to keep for a long period of time, so that you can keep them in the pantry without it going bad, or you can put it in the freezer. So trying to see like what are like some very simple and basic ingredients that you can use to make healthy and nutritious, but also really tasty food. So I did that for a while. Then I kind of like stopped doing it because, other things came along, work got busy. But I'm reviving it this week. So I made palak paneer about a few days ago. And then I think I'm going to do something with chickpeas. I'm still debating whether to do it Indian style or Tunisian style because I like both. There's some really fun dishes. But yeah, we'll see. Really
Well,
excited about that.
as a big fan, I'm really happy that you're coming back with the show.
Well, I'm glad that I'm getting feedback like that, which is great. It's good to know that there's other people who are out there watching. Um, in fact, like one of my friends yesterday said that his mom was watching my cooking shows, and she said, I don't eat half the things that he puts in there, especially referring to the spices, but I like it. I like watching it. So, okay, I guess, it's definitely worth something. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're all looking for warmth and happiness from a 2D image on the screen. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me today for OutRight TV. I'm really
Of
happy we
course.
got this time. And
I-
thank you for everyone watching. I'm Louisa and I work for OutRight. I talked to Tushar today, and my colleagues and I will be back soon with more stories.